Welcome back to the channel and welcome to the first episode of the pilot of our future podcast, the TPWC podcast. Name still pending, but that's the abbreviation for right now. So this is the first episode of the pilot. Not the first episode, not the second episode, not the third episode. This is the pilot episode. We might have 10 pilot episodes, 2 pilot episodes, 3 pilot episodes, but this is a pilot. This is not the official. This is the warm up. This is the first look. This is the rough draft. That's what it is. The prototype, the rough draft. But yeah, in this pilot episode, this is the TPWC podcast, pilot episode 1, Jones versus Miocic, Adesanya versus Strickland, and more. But yeah, like we're gonna go over some topics, discuss them, and let you guys hear it, and let's get to it. So the first one we'll be going over is Jones versus Miocic, and I'm gonna discuss more about it in depth because there's definitely a lot of stuff that's being overlooked by a lot of people, pundits, hardcores, like casuals. A lot of people just not looking at this fight the way you should really be looking at this fight. And I'm gonna get all into that. And me and Nikki Bout's gonna bounce converse about it a little bit more. But I'm gonna start it off and stuff and get into what I'm talking about. So he can understand a little bit more. Y'all can understand it more. Where like people are missing the mark on it. So Jones versus Miocic, the biggest thing to start off with the Jones versus Miocic matchup is people are big overlooking Stipe Miocic, and they're not really. No, you understand the John side, but they're like looking at Jones as just as taking the easier route, not fighting the Pavlovich or fighting the Aspinalls. Like, oh, he's just ducking those guys. But that's one of the big overlooks. So you like think he's ducking those guys, then you're underestimating Stipe, and like a lot of people are saying Stipe is just old, and all of a sudden he's a has been and whatnot. I know he hasn't been active like I think like a year or something, which isn't necessarily crazy outside the fact given the age he is. But also you got to factor in that this guy is one of the greatest fighters of all time. Period. Like heavyweight, all the way through down the whole weight class throughout the history of MMA, he's one of the greatest of all time. So when you're one of those great fighters like that, it's not like you can afford to take some time off and come back. A lot of guys that time will ruin them, but it's just been a year. I mean, it's been some years, some change, but I don't think it's going to be as significant as people are making him to be. And also, like John Jones is a guy that typically goes out there and try to knock your lights out. John Jones will give you rounds to warm up and come in there typically. And Stipe is a very well-rounded guy, so he's not a Cyril Gahn or Derek Lewis who got like no grappling like that. So it's going to be a much harder fight than a lot of people are realizing. And I think naturally, I think this is a more dangerous matchup than people are realizing. I feel like Pavlovich and Aspinall are the easy route because it's not a whole lot of risk to maybe a risk for a loss, a greater risk for a loss, and greater risk for her, like health maybe on paper or potentially because you're dealing with these younger, hungrier guys. But I think this is a more dangerous matchup to John Jones' legacy. And again, goes back to the Stipe Miocic side of the name. Steve Miocic, a lot of people like they give him respect to some extent, but like they kind of give him respect with like an asterisk mark. Like he's great, but for like a heavyweight. But Stephen Miocic, at the very least, he's top 20 all time, and we consider over 30 years and like 7, 8 different weight classes to be top 20 at the very least. That's crazily good, and he's actually someone that can shift their ranking in the all-time pound for pound with a win over John Jones, and could potentially shift John Jones from number 1 to number 2 because GSP is not too far behind him, and Mighty Mouse is not too far behind him. So a potential loss to Stipe, who's already that high up on the rankings in the pound, could shift Stipe to a clear top 10 pound, already having 2 wins over DC. If he beats John Jones, then Stipe, definitely probably top 10 for sure. Like I know it's a lot of great fighters, and like I definitely know more than a lot of other people. Like other people just think it's John Stipe. I mean I keep saying Jones, Khabib and Silva and GSP and Mighty Mouse. A lot of people just and Volkanovski. I know a lot of people just their view of MMA's greats are so short and only kind of encompass like 10 years. They don't think about the Wanderlei, the Dan Henderson, the Fedors, and barely think about Aldo. They kind of think of McGregor. They don't really think about all those other people. But I'm encompassing all those people, and I feel like a win over Jones could definitely shift Stipe very high up that pound list and bring John Jones down just a different level. So this fight is dangerous to Lexi versus a guy losing to a Pavlovich or Aspinall. It's going to be like, well, he's old now. Those guys are young. It happens. It's going to be it's not never good to lose, but it's going to be like, oh, John Jones has been fighting for 40 years. He might be 36, but he's really like 50 years in MMA years. And then another thing on the side of the threat level is people act like Stipe is just the older fighter when John Jones was like a champion in the UFC before Stipe was even in the UFC. So John Jones has been fighting at a championship level longer than Stipe has even been in the UFC, let alone being the champion. So it's a lot of different things going into this one that people are overlooking. I think this is a very good matchup. And I think also on the plus side for Jones in this one, he gets a chance to beat an actual champion, an actual great, not a could be, but a guy that has already been, and another person who has been around. So this is not a matchup John Jones is fighting some old guy and trying to get an easy win. This is a bigger matchup for his legacy than anyone else can pose for him at this weight class. And really anyone in the sport right now can pose for him. Obviously, he can't shrink himself and fight Mighty Mouse. He can't bring Khabib out of retirement and shrink himself and fight Khabib and, those guys and stuff. Adesanya clearly not measuring up fully to, what people believe he could be. Still great, but that matchup no longer really interesting at all. And it's not worth his time to try to cut down and fight him or, give him the option to come up and fight him at heavyweight whatnot. So this is really the biggest matchup for his legacy that he has available to him. So, outside of Ngannou, I'm forgetting that one. Ngannou is the biggest one. Stipe is the second biggest one. And then back, I'm kind of jumping all around here, but back to this Stipe, people acting like he's so falling off. He just was coming off 2 big wins over Cormier, the biggest win of his career. And then he was doing, he didn't do okay against Ngannou. He got stopped, but it's not like he was doing terribly against Ngannou. And you got to realize Ngannou does have that one-punch knockout power. And, he landed a clean counter, but Ngannou ate it and then hit him back and knocked him out. So it was like, you can't just act like, he just lost to some scrub. He lost to one of the greatest heavyweights of all time, and he beat another one of the greatest fighters of all time twice before losing to another great. So Stipe has definitely been underlooked, this written off right here, and he has a lot of stake in here, and that fight is a very interesting matchup, and really, in my opinion, the most interesting matchup available for Jones. The other matchups are definitely interesting, but as far as when you look at the full picture, this is really the most interesting matchup for Jones available in the UFC right now. As far as in the whole sport of MMA, it's definitely Ngannou. But as far as what's available to him now, definitely Miocic. But how do you feel about this matchup, and what are your thoughts on the match? Do you think it's like he's ducking the other guys, or do you think that this matchup not really worth it, and you think he should just stop trying to get the Miocic fight and just look forward to Aspinalls and the Pavlovich and try to defend the belt a couple more times? How do you feel?
Yeah, I mean, John Jones is a legend. I was outside the fighter hotel, waiting for autographs and trying to talk to the fighters. And one of the guys asked me, who's the greatest of all time? And it's John Jones. Khabib has a beautiful resume, undefeated. Jones is undefeated in my opinion, because he did the 10-2 elbow, which got him disqualified. I think everybody knows that he had that in the bag. So I think John Jones is undefeated right now. And I think you're right. I was looking past Stipe, because, to be honest with you, I put like $85 down to win $2,000, and the last fight on the parlay is John Jones beating Stipe Miocic. So I think you're right, though. I think people are overlooking him and giving thought to, is it going to be Tom Aspinall? Is it going to be Pavlovich? Is it going to be Gone? Will John Jones fight Gone on the feet, and he squeaks by with the win? Who knows? I think Tom Aspinall is the most dangerous person at this point. He's proven himself to be, the way he's ran through, not Curtis Blaze, Sergey Spivak. He ran through Alexander Volkov, and Volkov just proved how good he is. So, I mean, at this point, I think John Jones can dictate his own future. He can kind of Conor McGregor anything he wants, and the UFC will, be like, we got no choice but to give it to the guy. So I think you're right on a lot of points. I think John Jones is so much better than anybody's ever realized. And a lot of people, know how good he is. But I think the fight with Stipe and maybe a fight with Tom Aspinall will seal his fate as the #1 pound for pound greatest of all time to ever step in an octagon. But yeah, that's how I feel. What do you think is next for Tom Aspinall?
Tom Aspinall, as far as Tom Aspinall, I guess right now he kind of waiting a little bit. He kind of wants the Cyril Gane fight, but Cyril Gane doesn't want that match. That'd be a great next matchup for him. Or he could get a Sergey Pavlovich fight. You don't know if John Jones or Stipe is going to get injured or they're going to retire. You don't know what's going to happen. So it could definitely end up in the case of it's a vacated title. then Cyril Gane versus Pavlovich for the vacated title, or Aspinall versus Pavlovich, or something like that. Cyril Gane versus Pavlovich. Like you could just jumble those three up, and no matter how you jumble it up, it makes sense. Or you could, like I said, we'll combine those three with maybe Jones and Miocic, because you don't know who's going to win. Like we pretty sure John Jones is going to win, but at the end of the day, we aren't. No, we don't know the future. So stuff could definitely mix up in different ways. Some guy get injured in the fight, guy get caught, submitted, stuff happens. But yeah, but you mix up any of those five: Jones, Miocic, Aspinall, Pavlovich, Gane, and they all make sense except maybe Jones versus Gane. That's the only match out of that mix that don't make sense, because Jones already destroyed Gane.
Yeah.
And Gane has not done nearly enough to get a rematch with Jones. He can say he slipped up, but he has no star power to say I deserve a rematch based off that one win he got. So
Right.
yeah. But I think the best matchup, to be honest, I feel would be, I definitely want to see for him next. I would like to see him versus Gane. I think that would be a real good matchup next. That's
Yeah.
the matchup for me. What match you think is the best for him next? Like which one you want to see more for Aspinall next?
To be honest, the Sergey Pavlovich, just because he's been so dominant, and so is Tom Aspinall, and it just I want to see the great, you know, equal fights. I think John Jones would probably school Tom Aspinall right now, but I also think Tom Aspinall's, the second best in the division. And then it goes Sergey Pavlovich and then Cyril Gane. So I think Cyril Gane should fight Tom Aspinall. I think either Sergey Pavlovich or John Jones. John Jones he doesn't have to fight anymore. You know what I mean? He doesn't have to do anything anymore. He could stop after the Miocic fight, and everybody would call him the greatest pound for pound of all time. But yeah, I think there's some great fights that are going to be made at heavyweight, and I can't wait to see it, man. I can't. But what are we on to next? You want to do the welterweight?
Yeah, we're going to talk about the state of the welterweight division. So the state of the welterweight division has been a lot of inactivity. Yeah, a lot of inactivity. I had to say inactivity like 4 times, but yeah, Leon Edwards hasn't fought since defending his belt against Kamaru Usman. Like won the belt, defended it, and now it's been inactivity. I mean, Kobe Covington hasn't fought in like 2,000 days, so that's a crazy, right? He hasn't fought, and even before that, Kobe Covington hadn't really been fighting contenders like that. I think everybody he's fought is no longer ranked. A lot of them have retired. Like yeah, Tyron Willie went on the box. Jake Paul like twice. Matter of fact, Tyron Willie's retired and has been more active than Kobe Covington. That's crazy. Like Kobe Covington supposed to be, I guess, near or close to his peak, and Tyron Willie supposed to be over the hill, but Tyron Willie has had 2 boxing matches since then. And yeah, like what has Kobe Covington done since then? Like I can't even think his last win. The last win was over Jorge Masvidal, and he hasn't fought in 2,000 days. And I think Jorge Masvidal fought like 2 more times since then or something. But either way, it's like a lot of inactivity. I think the only guy like in the top 10 who has fought recently was Vicente Luque. Other than that, a lot of guys haven't fought in like over hundreds of days. They need to start fighting. I know Bilal Muhammad had a good bit of activity, and I feel like Bilal Muhammad fought pretty recently. I feel like it was a stint when he was fighting like twice, like 3 times a year.
Yeah,
So
I
I feel like
made
he fought
$5,000 off him.
Yeah, so I feel like Bilal, yeah, he definitely had a good stretch where he was fighting very actively and he was taking big risks and winning back and back. And as far as that, also the state of the welterweight division, I feel like Bilal Muhammad definitely deserves it far more than Kobe Covington. Like I said, who has Kobe Covington beat like that really deserves or warrants a title fight? He hasn't beat no one. Whereas Bilal Muhammad has knocked off Gilbert Burns, he was a dog against. He beat Sean Brady, who he was a dog against. He beat Vicente Luque, who he was a dog against, and got knocked out before in their first fight. So he has been doing big things that warrant a title shot. Went out there and dominated Stephen Wonderboy Thompson worse than he's been dominated probably in most of his career. I can't really think of anyone who has dominated Stephen Wonderboy Thompson to that extent that Bilal Muhammad did in that fight. He got caught by Pettis. He lost close fights. He lost one close fight to Woodley. And I think maybe one other person finished him or something like that. I think the only person I can really remember finishing him was definitely Pettis. But yeah, I've never seen him get dominated to that extent. I know Gilbert Burns did something similar, I think, earlier than that. But Bilal Muhammad literally didn't give him no time, no space, and really was just pounding on him the whole fight. Like it was a bad, brutal beating. As brutal as soft ground and pound is, but it was like nonstop. So yeah, the state of the welterweight division is like it's one of the most stagnant divisions right now because a lot of guys just don't want to fight nobody. I don't know what's going on there, but they need to make some matchups. They need to force some things to happen. Need to have some tournament. Need something going. And I don't know what Leon Edwards is doing necessarily. Is he ducking Kobe Covington? I don't think he should. I don't think he would. I don't think that's what he's doing. Or maybe trying to negotiate more money, or maybe trying to hope Kobe Covington gets a little bit older, just a little bit older, so that it's a lock for him to win. It's supposed to like a high confidence that he's going to win. Shift it to a lock, make Kobe Covington like 40 coming into the fight, and 4,000 days inactive. But yeah, it definitely needs to be a fight. I feel what they really should do, the matchup that should be happening next should be Leon Edwards versus Bilal Muhammad 2, and actually give them a chance to really have that fight and not in the way, I poke. Both the guys are, at the peak of their career. Both the guys are proving people wrong after wrong. Like, Edwards with that big comeback win over Kamaru Usman, then beating him back to back. And then Bilal Muhammad, and both guys beat a person who beat them early on in their career too. Like Leon Edwards came back and beat Kamaru Usman, who beat him early on in his career. And Bilal Muhammad came back and beat Vicente Luque, who beat him on early on in career. And both of those guys also were former Black Zillion people as well. So they got a lot in common. They both fought each other in a fight that ended in a freak way. Both guys aren't necessarily like most fan favorite guys. Both kind of labeled like a decision striker and a decision wrestler. So they got a lot of parallels. That'd be a good matchup. It might not sell, but I think this would probably be the best MMA we can get at at welterweight right now, matching those two against each other, doing that rematch, scrapping the Kobe Covington, let him fight a Gilbert Burns or let him fight probably Gilbert Burns. We don't want to risk him losing, so I think he could beat Gilbert Burns pretty comfortably enough. And then that will put him, give him a win that would give him Gilbert Burns or Jeff Neal. And that will give him a win that will keep him somewhat relevant and then be enough to give him a gifted title shot. He'll still be gifted, but at least like he's done something. He'd be someone that's relevant, active, and high up in the rankings, or even Vicente Luque. And then that would make sense. And while in the meantime, I forgot his name mid-video, but give Bilal Muhammad his shot. He deserves it. He's been putting in more work than anyone and beating more people, more relevant wins than anyone by far in the weight class outside of Leon Edwards. So that's my take. What do you think about the state of the welterweight division?
I'm excited. I think there's a lot of opportunity for each guy that's in the top 10 to do stuff big. I think me as a fan, I want to see Shavkat versus Bella because Bilal is a beast. Shavkat's a beast. Like, where will it end? Where will it begin? You know what I mean? They're just two great fighters. But I think who deserves it the most? Definitely Bilal. I don't want to see Colby Covington versus Leon Edwards just because I don't like Colby Covington. I don't like what he represents. I don't like how he acts. I think he's doing it to get paid. I respect that. But that's as much as I'll give him. You know what I mean? I don't think he, like you said, 2,000 days he hasn't fought, and he gets the title because he beat up his old best friend. Jorge Masvidal is not in the rankings because he's not fighting in the UFC anymore. And I think that Gilbert Burns and Bilal kind of put that position for number one contender, and whoever won that, just because of where they are in the rankings, Gilbert being number 5, Bilal being number 3. But man, I there's a lot of fighters in this division that I like. I like Kamaru Usman. I like Bilal Muhammad, even though when I met him, he just kind of looked at me and was like, fuck off. I was asking him for an autograph, but you can't blame someone for not wanting to talk to you at 2 or 3 in the morning. So, but yeah, I think Stephen Wonberg Thompson should probably fight Sean Brady. I think Jeff Neal should probably fight Gilbert Burns. I think Shavkat, either Bilal Muhammad or Bilal Muhammad for the title. What do you think's next for Shavkat?
Shavkat? Shavkat. I think, he's been training with Kamaru Usman, but Kamaru Usman says he's down to fight him. I don't know if Shavkat says he's down to fight Kamaru Usman, but that could be a potential good matchup if they do set that up. Shavkat's kind of interesting position because I feel like he's definitely in a position if Bilal Muhammad wants to take another risky fight, but I feel Bilal Muhammad has already taken like 3 risky fights that came out. How many times do you got to prove people wrong at this point in your career to get a title shot? You got to fight you got to fight Khamzat and Shavkat just to get a title shot. So I feel like that's not, Bilal doesn't have to take that risk no more. I'm not saying that he don't have to take no more risks in his career. He just gifted a title shot, but I do feel he earned it. So I don't feel like he needs it. There's no point in taking that. And even winning that fight, there's no guarantee he's going to get the title shot. And also not no guarantee that they might not do some politics and caused him to lose a close decision because they want Shavkat to fight for the title. So yeah, I think it's all smart that he just get the title shot next or be next in line for the title shot. Shavkat, I think Shavkat could just start taking those fights that like don't really move him forward because I already feel like he's in a position where people see him as a guy that could be challenging for the title. So he could fight like Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, beat him, finish him. They'll put a statement on him, give him like the worst beating he has ever gotten in his career. I'll strike him, drop him, tap him out, give him a full mix around, like not just a striking decision, not just a grappling thing, but like a full mix up and, really put a statement performance on um, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, probably retire him. And then that will give him like, elevated status, more popularity and stuff, as opposed to like, really trying to fight real contenders. Cause who's really there? Maybe a Sean Brady. He already beat Jeff Neal. Maybe possibly Kevin Holland if he wins tonight. So it's definitely some people he can fight. Or maybe I think that's really a good match. So the winner of Kevin Holland versus Jack Della Maddalena would be the perfect matchup for him. That'd be the perfect match. So Stephen Wonderboy Thompson or the winner of Kevin Holland versus Jack Della Maddalena would be the perfect matchup for him next. And who do you think next for him?
I think I was going to say the same exact thing. I was going to say that the winner of Kevin Holland versus Jack Della Maddalena should fight Shavkat, and I think Shavkat's earned, either a Gilbert Burns, a Kamaru Usman, or a Colby Covington fight. But I think just to keep his name active and just to be active in the, possibly the top 5, because Hamzat's getting kicked out of there. You know what I mean? He's fighting at middleweight. They want him to pick a place and, kind of bury his head and that's where he's probably going to live for a long time, is at middleweight, maybe possibly 205. So I don't see Hamzat's number 4. So I think if he fought the winner of Kevin Holland versus Jack Della Maddalena, then he should just take that fight just because he knows it's a good win on his record and wait for his chance at the title. So are we on to middleweight?
Yeah, now we're on the middleweight. Adesanya versus Strickland, the future of the middleweight division and a lot of different questions that comes up after this loss for Adesanya. So firstly, Adesanya now is 4-3 in his last 7 fights. It's definitely not a good look, the numbers, but you also got to realize this is not, a lot of other people be on 10-0 and 11-0 and 14 and this and all this stuff, or 6-2, 5-0 and all these other different numbers. But a lot of those people don't be that at the top of the division. Like you're literally the number 1 guy fighting the best guy every time, or the next best guy every single time out. So it's much harder to stay consistent at there. But also you gotta realize that, but also you gotta realize that, where Adesanya is in his legacy and in his career, especially outside of middleweight, and you just look at general pound and general history, he's in that range where those wins still matter. He's not a guy that is trying to be great. He's a guy that's already great and trying to be great among great people. And then that record becomes relevant again because you got the Khabibs who've been undefeated and stuff. You got the there's other people right next to him, Kamaru Usman and Ngannou and stuff, who haven't suffered necessarily as many losses, or not as consistently, I guess, as he has. And yeah, Volkanovski, his training partner, was his teammate. You got a lot of people that are, having much more consistent records throughout history. And like when you're around those guys, you can easily drop a little bit in the rankings, or a lot of it in the rankings, because a lot of these guys have, when they were on top, they were more consistent. And also when you consider chasing Anderson Silva is not an easy division to necessarily be great in, or will be the greatest in, because other weight classes like Khabib's weight class, it's the highest weight. I mean, the highest defense was three defenses, 3 consecutive defenses, 3 total probably. Whereas middleweight, Anderson Silva at one point had the most defenses in the history of UFC. He had 10 consecutive defenses. Really 11 if you count the, I think the Luter fight, which was supposed to be a title fight, but then ended up because Luter didn't make weight. So, Silva had set a really high, hard act to follow. And Adesanya was doing his best to cover that. A lot of people were giving him grace and saying, like, even though he got like half the defenses, he's like, he could be the greatest of all time. But now with like 2 losses in his last 3 fights, it's like that really comes into question. I was never thinking that he was, really close to Anderson Silva. I definitely think he was on his way to, working his way up. He was in a good position. He had, I guess, a good chance to challenge that record, Did I think he would do it? No. And did I think he's going to now? No. But I definitely think he had a decent chance, and he had a good perspective. But yeah, like now losing another fight in the last three, not a good look. I think as far as his status in the middleweight division, I think it's submitted because there's no one else close to him, like necessarily close, or that's going to be close enough to really jump over him right now. Whitaker is in a decent position, but he has no title defense. He's already lost Adesanya twice, so it's gonna be a hard sell for him to jump over Adesanya in the middleweight rankings all time. Silva, Silva submitted, like he's already above Adesanya, fully submitted in that position for all I know, and all I could believe and all stuff. But yes, nobody else necessarily threatening his position just yet. Maybe in 2 or 3 years, maybe a Khamzat or some other guy will come around and they'll have like 2 or 3 consecutive defenses. Then there'll be a challenge to his legacy or his number 2 spot. But I think right now his number 2 spot is secured at middleweight. But definitely his status is pound for pound, in the top greatest of all time, pound for pound fighters of all time. I think that's in jeopardy. And maybe where his career is at currently, his career going forward as a champion, I think that's in jeopardy as well. Because now it's kind of hard to keep winning and losing a belt. Because it's already hard to lose a belt, then win it back. Now that you lost a belt, then win it back, you got to go back there and try to do that again. It's definitely raised a lot of eyebrows there. But yeah, as far as his legacy at middleweight, I think that's secured. His pound for pound status and ranking, I think that's definitely volatile right now, and that could shift drastically depending on how the next matchup goes and how he goes from here. It was great that he was able to rebound against Pereira with all that history, and I think that loss and win actually elevated him. But to elevate just like that and have the biggest performance of his whole combative career, then just to lose in the way he lost in the lackluster, dry fashion that he lost just in the Strickland fight, yeah, definitely raises like a lot of questions and drops his stock some bit. But not to say that Strickland's a bad fighter, but it's a fight he should have won and should have won in spectacular fashion. But Strickland did what he had to do, and yeah, I'm gonna mention Strickland a little bit. What does Strickland need to do right here? I think Strickland has some good potential matchups with a rematch with Adesanya potentially at UFC 300, or really what is right for the division, given the fact that Adesanya has been gifted title shot after title shot. He lost, he got another instant title shot, and then he lost again. They potentially give him another instant title shot. I think a Cannonier rematch will be good for Strickland. I think taking Adesanya's dream fight away from him and giving him Dricus du Plessis for Strickland, I think that could be interesting. In the meanwhile, who knows? Maybe get Adesanya Cannonier again. Give him a fight that could put him back there. Like give him Cannonier again, give him Cannonier a chance at Adesanya again, and give Adesanya a chance to put a statement on Cannonier that he wasn't able to do in the first fight. I don't think the Whitaker matchup make no sense, but for Adesanya, I think definitely a Cannonier fight could be good, or even Adesanya versus Dricus du Plessis. I think Adesanya versus Dricus du Plessis is probably the biggest matchup you can make in the weight class right now, belt on line or no belt. Because the animosity is already there. There's no need for a belt to generate interest. It's like we want to see this guy versus this guy. There's been a lot of talk, a lot of chirping, and you still can make that a very big matchup. And I think that'd be interesting. But yeah, so how do you feel about Adesanya in the weight class going forward? His legacy in the middleweight division, his legacy outside the middleweight division. Is an all-time great, and his chances going forward and how he shakes up with like these back-to-back title losses. Well, they're not back-to-back title losses, but in short period of time, multiple losses in title fights, and going forward, he's got like these Khamzats and Costa. Well, Costa he already beat Costa, but who knows? Like we didn't think he would lose to Strickland, so maybe Costa gets some renewed focus. He's got it better, so it could be a different matchup now. Also with people saying blueprints to how to beat him, the Costa matchup could be a whole different matchup now. And I think Costa is younger now. I think Adesanya like 35, Costa like 32, so maybe Adesanya could have just tipped over his peak right now, and he's a very vulnerable right now. So guys he beat in the past could potentially beat him now. We don't know, but how do you think he fares with those guys?
Yeah, I think Sean Strickland versus Cannonier makes the most sense because Strickland's lost to Cannonier. He can be plugged in as soon as December to fight Strickland, because Strickland didn't get touched up all that much. His face looked fine to me. He might have got hit a couple times, but Izzy was the one who got rocked. I think the winner of Paulo Costa versus Hamzat should fight Israel Adesanya. I think that because Izzy's already beaten Costa. Everybody thinks Hamzat's the best. I think Hamzat's the best. And I think, the Gilbert Burns showed how human Hamzat was, but I think as far as monetary gain, I think Israel Adesanya and Paulo Costa, they just have their narrative is insane. Like they don't get along, they hate each other. Izzy pumped him at the very end of their fight, and Hamza is a big name, and everybody thinks he can beat Izzy. So I think if Izzy fights that winner, I think he should be next in line for a title shot after the Jared Cannonier versus Sean Strickland. And I only think that Izzy's probably going to take some time off. Dracus Duplessis, the UFC doesn't look happy with them. So who knows what his fate holds. I think Dracus Duplessis is the real deal, but I think him not taking the Izzy fight, even if they pushed it out a few months so that he could heal, I think he should have been like, listen, let me get the shot, because it would have made more money than Hamzat versus Izzy, more money than Paulo Costa versus Izzy, more money than Sean Strickland versus Izzy, just because of the history, the fact that they're both from Africa, like, and I think, it just, there's a good narrative there. But as far as like the top five goes, I think Paulo Costa and is Hamzat should fight. Once they fight, pick that person to fight Izzy, and then the winner of that gets a title shot. And if they have to get Dracus Duplessis versus Sean Strickland, to be honest, I didn't think Duplessis was going to beat Robert Whitaker. I bet against him, but he proved me wrong. So I do think that if he fought Sean Strickland and won, Izzy would not be the favorite on the night of their fight. So that's just my opinion. What do you think's next for Hamzat after the Paulo Costa fight?
There really is no next, I guess, after the fight, because it's the thing, you gotta wait till the fight plays out. And
Let's say he wins.
If he wins, then he's probably gonna try to get a title shot, because he's been trying to, leapfrog things. He hasn't been really taking the proper steps. A lot of other people, they'll give me anybody, they'll go on a good 3-fight, 4-fight, 5-fight winning streak or something, just knocking off killer after killer, and then they'll earn that title shot. Like, who's next? I beat everybody. It's like he's like, I beat Kevin Holland, give me a title shot. I beat Gerard Machart, give me a title shot. Like, who's Gerard Machart? Gerard Machart's he's not a bad fighter. He's a good fighter, but by no means is that a fight that's gonna get you a title shot. Like, he's been trying to use star power, political this to get a shot. So he's been trying to jump. I feel like this fight definitely could give him a position, but Costa also is not a fighter that's gonna should not get you a title shot. Like, I can't even think Costa has not been that active himself. I mean, Costa's a good fighter. He has a real good chance of knocking Khamzat's lights out, to be honest. It's not the greatest stylist to match up for Khamzat.
No.
But also in the saying that Costa, what has Costa done? He had a close fight with Luke Rocco, and prior to that, he barely fought and he lost Adesanya. Then I think literally after fighting Adesanya, he didn't fight for a long time. Like, then he fought Vittori, then he lost. Then he didn't fight for a very long time. And then he got Luke Rocco, which should have been a clear layup for him, and still had a kind of difficulty with Luke Rocco. I know Rocco's a savvy veteran. I guess people were kind of expecting his chin to not be there, and I was expecting his chin not to be there. So, and we just don't expect things, it's always a little bit harder than versus you respect things and then you go about it the proper way. But yeah, still Costa's not really a fight I feel should get him either of those guys a title shot. If Costa knocks out Khamzat, I mean, Costa beats Khamzat. They got so much hype behind Khamzat. It could get him a title shot, to be honest. But Khamzat beating Costa, especially going is the favorite, and it is inactive as both those guys have been. And the fact that Khamzat really don't have a middleweight track record like that. Yeah, but focus on Khamzat because that's the question. I think, yeah, I don't think he should get a title shot next. I think if he beats Costa, if he beats Costa close, like a close little eke out decision, then I think he could potentially fight Robert Whitaker or fight Adesanya. I think those would be the two matches for him potentially, or maybe even a Cannonier, maybe. If he dominates Costa in a way he never dominated, like he drops him, knocks him out, one punch knocks him out, or takes him down, like picks him like a baby, slam him down and choke him out, make it look real easy, then I think he get a title shot. I don't think he fully deserves it, but if he could make a statement, it definitely will sell, and it definitely, I guess, it could give him enough of a push to say, oh, we'll give it to you. And I think that's the match. So good win, like a great dominant win, title shot. Not so great win, kind of close competitive fight, like probably split decision type victory. Then give him Adesanya or Whitaker. Probably most likely Whitaker or Cannon, because Adesanya probably like I ain't gonna take. I'm only gonna take big risks for title shots. I'm not taking no big risks for a eliminator at this point. I'm one of the greatest of all time. I'm one of the bigger stars in the sport. So I want to fight. Give me a layup maybe, and I'll fight that for a title eliminator. But I'm not fighting a Khamzat or no, like nobody threatening. Like I mean, he's not fighting no Khamzat for no eliminator. But yeah, that's what I think. What do you think? Should be the next matchup for Khamzat if he gets past Costa.
If he gets past Costa, I think three people come to mind: Robert Whitaker, Dracus du Plessis, or Israel Adesanya. I think you can make any one of those fights and it would make sense. I think this is going to be a big test for him. Gilbert Burns proved him human. When I saw Gilbert Burns in person, he doesn't look that intimidating. He just looks like a nice guy. But man, did he put a war on for the UFC fans with his fight against Khamzat. And I think if Paulo Costa can work on, because I guess Paulo Costa is a very decorated Brazilian jiu-jitsu specialist who has like champions and championships in Brazil and stuff. So I think it's gonna. I don't know if Khamzat's gonna choose what route he's gonna choose, but if he dominates, he should get any one of those three fights. I don't think he should fight Strickland. I think one of the top three should fight Strickland and then give it to Khamzat if he wins against any one of those three people, which I think Izzy's a bad matchup for him. I think Izzy is not capable of handling Khamzat's pressure in wrestling. But yeah, that's where I'm at. I love Khamzat. I want to see him win. I want to see him fight someone in the top three and then fight for a title. But at this point, I think he just has to maybe two more times. The Paulo Costa fight and whatever's after that. And then if he wins both of those, give the guy the title.
All right. Final thing to wrap it up. Let's focus on the champion now, Strickland. Like give him his props, give him his his 15 minutes of fame or his extended fame until he loses the title or retires or whatnot. So the guy's a champion right now. And for all we know, the guy go on one of the longest, greatest reigns of all our time. Like that's the nature of the game. Like sometimes people you don't expect to go on and be champion. Like Forrest Griffin in the past, that light heavyweight. Like people weren't really expecting him to. He was the dog's dog. And Sean Strickland is now the dog's dog. He's the dog. I mean, he's the champion now. Went from dog to champion. And like what do we feel about his chances? Like I think he definitely has a good chance of beating Adesanya. Like how many times can you strike gold? You were able to come back from that big loss to Pereira. And we look at the Pereira loss, there's actually much more glimmers of hope in the Pereira loss. Because he was, as a matter of fact, all the fights he fought Pereira were very close. I mean, he got stopped in two of them, but one fight, his first fight, he should have won that fight against Pereira in the kickboxing. Second fight, he was dominating Pereira, and he got caught and he got stopped. The UFC fight, he was, largely winning the fight, almost knocked him out in the same sequence he did eventually knock him out in their last fight. So he had much more moments, and prior to getting stopped, if he probably would have made it to the decision, he probably would have won against Pereira. Versus Strickland, he really didn't have very many moments against Strickland. So it's not really a whole lot he could say that he can, or I think I do more of this or do less of this. It's like there was really not a whole lot of good that came out of that fight with Strickland. He just looked very flat. And if anything, Strickland probably have more things. He's like, I could have done more here. I could have been more active there. I don't know why I was just kind of looking like a deer in headlights. He had nothing. I was catching all his kicks. I was in his face all the time. I was in no danger. I never got hurt in the fight. I could have went after him more and potentially got a stoppage. I could have, maybe played off the striking a little bit more and got a takedown and looked for some submissions. Like he has a lot of stuff he's working with. Adesanya got like either gonna make excuses like I just had an off night and not focus on that. I need to work on my box and work on this. So yeah, I think Strickland has a real solid chance of beating Adesanya in a rematch and just changing the course of this weight class. And I know but I know he trained with Khamzat and it's kind of speculated like Khamzat dominated him in the grappling department or dominated him in this department, but we don't know. Sparring. I think really Sean Strickland could actually be a very good challenge for Khamzat to potentially beat Khamzat because Khamzat sometimes have good cardio, sometimes don't. We know Sean Strickland is going to be constantly in your face, constantly talking trash. And if he can address the wrestling, I think Sean Strickland clearly has the better boxing, not more power, but I think he can deal with what Khamzat has on the feet. If he can stuff the takedowns, and start to go to his body and wear him down, he definitely could be a nightmare matchup for Kamzat. He stands him and drowns him in a deep round. So it's not written off that he can't beat these guys. I think he has a good shot at beating Kamzat. I think he has a good shot to beat Paula. We saw Vittori be able to outwork Costa in the past. I think Strickland could do similar. I think Strickland is better than Vittori, and Vittori was able to beat Costa. And Costa's power definitely is overrated. It's not, we might assume like he's this one punch berserker, but he's really a volume puncher. He's not. He has never really. He has. I mean, y'all don't want to be hit by the guy. He has these big bodybuilder arms, but he has never been a guy that just one punch lights you out. But again, you don't want to test that. But so far, his track record has shown that he's never been that guy to, at least in the UFC, that really one punch anyone. It's been a combination. So I think Strickland can deal with that. You know, take him into the deep rounds, especially 5 rounds, has a better chance of beating him than maybe 3 rounds, where Costa can have more steam through 2 rounds, then maybe kind of dip off in the 3rd round and win based off the work of his 2 rounds. So yeah, so he's kind of dealing with the people kind of right now. Kamzat, Dricus. I think he has a very open slate to beat Dricus. I think he's more technical than Dricus on the feet and everywhere. But Dricus is more physical and very awkward. And awkward fighters can create awkward situations. All take some awkward punch you don't see come from some awkward position, get caught, and then Dricus just start going on the Dricus train ride, and now you just rocked and wobbling, and he just drowning you and just keep coming and then finish. So yeah, I think if he could get past Adesanya again, which I think he has a good chance to, I think he can actually surprise a lot of people and go on a decent run in this weight class. Am I predicting him to do that? I'm not right now, but definitely don't sleep on Strickland. I think Strickland has a very promising, potential in the weight class. And he might seem like this journeyman old guy. Like he kind of gives you the thing of like a 38-year-old drunk guy that just comes in the gym and spars for the love of it. But the guy's only like 32 years old or 31. He might look older because of the shaved hair and the way he acts. But he's actually a very young guy, especially when you look at general age. He's like, he's still sitting right in his prime. So, yeah, Strickland had a lot of time. If he was like a 38-year-old veteran, yeah, it probably just for sure a one and done. But the fact that he still has the youth upside, he's still like just in the early stages of his prime or the early half of his prime, like 30, 35, he's like 32. He's sitting in a good spot, at the point he won, and that's gonna be riding a lot of confidence in him. The fact that he won a fight when he himself wasn't that confident about the matchup, he kind of felt like I'm 7 here trying to roll a dice, and to come out and do what he did and is, I guess, dominantly to this, you could say. I think he's going to be even more scary in the next match between him and Adesanya. Adesanya's really got to bring it all and can't afford to take any sleeps away from this guy. I mean, or afford to get sleep on this guy any bit. You got to come in there just as confident as he was for Pereira and like really zone in. But what do you thoughts about Strickland going forward?
Man, I think Strickland, he proved me wrong in a lot of ways, because I thought Izzy was a lock just because Izzy's so dynamic in his ability to elude punches and at the same time hit the buttons of other people. And his button got touched in the 1st round, and I was like, oh shit, I see where this is going. And Strickland just put the pressure on him, and I was like, I had a few bets out with Adesanya winning, and I, now looking back at it, I wish, probably like everybody does, that they bet on Sean Strickland. But for me, it's about learning. And I learned that night that if Sean shows up, he could beat anyone. Dricus du Plessis, if he could beat Israel Adesanya in Israel Adesanya's prime, because yes, Izzy lost last year. Yes, he's lost 2 of his last 3, but the way he disassembled Pereira in that 1st round, I bet on Pereira, and it's like a hit and miss. It's like, wow, I thought Pereira was going to do the same thing he did in the last fight. And that's why, fighting is ever evolving. Fighters like Sean Strickland, who, a perfect analogy, was like a Forrest Griffin. He's a gatekeeper. He's a legend. He's a veteran, but he's not the best. But he gives his best and he does great things. Just like Sean Strickland beating Izzy was amazing. Like, my jaw was on the floor. I think Sean Strickland deserves his flowers. I think he's earned them. I think he deserves to pick whoever he wants right now because of the way that he dealt with Izzy. I think Izzy needs to go back to the drawing board and fight a Dricus du Plessis, Paulo Costa, or a Hamzat. I think those are the only 3 fights that make sense. and whoever wins for Paulo Costa and Hamzat, I think that person should fight Israel Adesanya and then move forward. But I think Sean Strickland cemented himself as, you know, one of the greatest to ever do it. And yes, he's only got one title shot. He's only gotten the belt once. He hasn't defended it, but he's proved himself in that ring over and over and over again. And yes, he got touched by Pereira, but look what he did to Izzy. And Izzy just fought Pereira. So there's no saying that Izzy wasn't at his peak, at his, you know, highest. It's just Sean Strickland. I saw him boxing two guys, Chris Curtis and another guy in the ring, and they were chasing him around trying to hit him. And I didn't realize how important that information would be when it came to Izzy fighting Sean Strickland, because being chased by two people and them not really being able to hit you and you being able to touch them, and that's what he was doing the whole time, should have told me, don't sleep on Sean Strickland. And I think now everybody can say it's official. Don't sleep on Sean Strickland. But Sean Strickland, I think he can do whatever he wants. If he wants Jared Cannonier, if he wants Dracus du Plessis, if he wants the winner of Paulo versus Hamzat, and then Izzy again, I think he's earned that and with his last title shot. And he's, you know, proved a lot of the doubters wrong. And I respect him for that. And that's the difference between him and Colby Covington. Colby Covington hasn't earned his ability to call for a title shot and get that title shot. He hasn't fought in 2,000 days, and Sean Strickland just beat probably the greatest middleweight champion of all time. Him and Anderson Silva are probably right up there. I think Izzy is definitely one of the greatest to ever do it at 185, and so is Anderson Silva. And I just think that Sean Strickland has earned his shot and earned his ability to call for any fight that he wants.
All right, that's good. And that's the podcast right there. Pilot episode 1 for the TPWC podcast, Pilot 1, Jones versus Miocic, Adesanya versus Strickland, and more. That's the video. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe, and come back for more videos. And also subscribe to Nicky Betts' channel. He'll be in the comment section. I'll drop a link to his channel in the comment section as well. So subscribe to him because we're going to definitely do stuff on his channel. And it's not going to just be joint stuff. It's going to be like some stuff different on his channel, some stuff different on my channel, and also definitely stuff when we create our joint channel. So definitely check his channel out, subscribe. And that's the video. Again, peace.